The Wild Muir, 22 of John Muir's greatest adventures. Climbing the Ice Cone. Most Yosemite Valley residents found Muir to be likable enough, but eccentric, perhaps foolhardy, in his enthusiasm for long trips into the backcountry, for his delight in stormy weather, and for his challenging investigations of natural phenomenon like the ice cone. When the first heavy storms stopped work on the high mountains, I made haste down to my Yosemite den, not to hole up and sleep the white months away, while I was out every day, and often night, sleeping but little, studying the so-called wonders and common things ever on show, wading, climbing, sauntering among the blessed storms and calms, rejoicing in almost everything alike that I could see or hear, the glorious brightness of frosty mornings, the sunbeams pouring over the white domes and crags in the groves and waterfalls, kindling marvelous iris fires in the hoarfrost and spray, the great white forests and mountains in their deep noon sleep, the goodnight alpenglow, the stars, the solemn gazing moon drawing the huge domes and headlands, one by one glowing white out of the shadows, hushed and breathless, like an audience in awful enthusiasm, while the meadows at their feet sparkle with frost stars like the sky, the sublime darkness of the storm nights when all the lights are out, the clouds in whose depths the frail snowflowers grow. Behavior and many voices of the different kinds of storms, trees, birds, waterfalls, and snow avalanches in the ever-changing weather. Every clear, frosty morning, loud sounds are heard, booming and reverberating from side to side of the valley at intervals of a few minutes, beginning soon after sunrise and continuing an hour or two like a thunderstorm. In my first winter in the valley, I could not make out the source of this noise. I thought of falling boulders, rock blasting, etc. Not till I saw what looked like hoarfrost dropping from the side of the fall was the problem explained. The strange thunder is made by the fall of sections of ice formed of spray that is frozen on the face of the cliff along the sides of the upper Yosemite Fall, a sort of crystal plaster, a foot or two thick, cracked off by the sunbeams, awakening all the valley like cock crowing, announcing the finest weather, shouting aloud nature's infinite industry and love of hard work in creating beauty. This frozen spray gives rise to one of the most interesting winter features of the valley, a cone of ice at the foot of the fall, 400 or 500 feet high. From the fern ledge standpoint, its crater-like throat is seen, down which the fall plunges with deep, gasping explosions of compressed air, and, after being well churned in the stormy interior, the water bursts forth through an arched opening at its base, apparently scourged and weary and glad to escape while belching spray. Spouted up out of the throat past the descending current, is wafted away in iris drifts to the adjacent rocks and groves. It is built during the night and early hours of the morning. Only in spells of exceptionally cold and cloudy weather is the work continued through the day. The greater part of the spray material falls in crystalline showers direct to its place, something like a small local snowstorm, but a considerable portion is first frozen on the face of the cliff along the sides of the falls and stays there until expanded and cracked off in irregular masses, some of them tons in weight, to be built into the walls of the cone, while in windy, frosty weather, when the fall is swayed from side to side, the cone is well drenched, and the loose ice masses and spray dust all firmly welded and frozen together. Thus, the finest of the downy wafts and curls of the spray dust, which in mild nights fall about as silently as dew, are held back until sunrise to make store of heavy ice to reinforce the waterfall thunder. While the cone is in the process of formation, growing higher and wider in the frosty weather, it looks like a beautiful, smooth, pure white hill, but when it is wasting and breaking up in the spring, its surface is strewn with leaves, pine branches, stones, sand, etc., that have been brought over the fall, making it look like a heap of avalanche detritus. Anxious to learn what I could about the structure of this curious hill, I often approached it in calm weather and tried to climb it, carrying an axe to cut steps. Once I nearly succeeded in gaining the summit. At the base, I was met by a current of spray and wind that made seeing and breathing difficult. I pushed on backward, however, and soon gained the slope of the hill, where, by creeping close to the surface, most of the choking blast passed over me, and I managed to crawl up, but with little difficulty. Thus I made my way nearly to the summit, halting at times to peer through the wild whirls of spray at the veiled grandeur of the fall, or to listen to the thunder beneath me, the whole hill sounding as if it were a huge, bellowing drum. I hoped that by waiting until the fall was blown aslant, I should be able to climb to the lip of the crater and get a view of the interior. But a suffocating blast, half air, half water, followed by the fall of an enormous mass of frozen spray from a spot high up on the wall, quickly discouraged me. The whole cone was jarred by the blow, and some fragments of the mass sped past me dangerously near, so I beat a hasty retreat, chilled and drenched, and lay down on a sunny rock to dry. Once, during a windstorm, when I saw that the fall was frequently blown westward, leaving the cone dry, I ran up to Fern Ledge, hoping to gain a clear view of the interior. I set out at noon. All the way up, the storm notes were so loud about me that the voice of the fall was almost drowned by them. Notwithstanding, the rocks and bushes everywhere were drenched by the wind-driven spray. I approached the brink of the precipice, overlooking the mouth of the ice cone, but I was almost suffocated by the drenching, gusty spray and was compelled to seek shelter. I searched for some hiding place in the wall from whence I might run out at some opportune moment when the fall, with its whirling spray and torn shreds of comet tails and trailing, tattered skirts was borne westward, as I had seen it carried several times before, leaving the cliffs on the east side and the ice hill bare in the sunlight. I had not long to wait, for, as if ordered so by my special accommodation, the mighty downrush of the comets, with their whirling drapery, swung westward and remained aslant for nearly half an hour. The cone was admirably lighted and deserted by water, which fell most of the time on the rocky western slopes, mostly outside of the cone. The mouth into which the fall pours was, as near as I could guess, about 100 feet in diameter north and south, and about 200 feet east and west, which is about the shape and size of the fall best in normal conditions in this season. The crater-like opening was not a true oval, but more like a huge, coarse mouth. I could see down the throat about 100 feet, or perhaps farther. The fall precipice overhangs from a height of 400 feet above the base. Therefore, the water strikes some distance from the base of the cliff, allowing space for the accumulation of a considerable mass of ice between the fall and the wall.